Let's watch the previous possession, the spin, the split, and the lefty finish. Look at James Harden loving his teammate, laying it in.
On Monday, it was cold.
The Los Angeles Clippers is finally heating up and clicking together. It took a while, especially when they first got James Harden and they started out the season with James Harden losing 5 to 6 games straight. But ever since the one person who needed to make the sacrifice, Russell Westbrook, made a trip to the bench and started to come off the bench and be the kind of the energy piece for the team instead of the person that's going to be starting and pretty much ending games, that has pretty much made this team a championship contender team. And I don't want to understate this enough. The sacrifice that Russell Westbrook made to be on the bench, to sacrifice his minutes in order for spacing, in order for more valuable shooters to be on the floor, in order for more defense to be played, but also still have value to the team and playing with different type of lineups that he otherwise wouldn't have played with because he would be the starter. That is the type of sacrifice that you need to win a championship. And Russell Westbrook has never been the person to be known as selfish. He's always been known by his teammates to be the person that always does what it takes, always does what it needs to win a championship. But there are bigger reasons why the Clippers are just now finally clicking, and that is to really start with Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard started off the season pretty good along with Paul George. However, as soon as James Harden got on the team, things just did not seem right with him. He wasn't making as many shots as he would. The spacing was kind of off. I mean, it's understandable when as soon as you get somebody that is, that big of a piece, the system player, as James Harden liked to say, it's understandable for you to have problems and for you not to know how you fit on the team and for you to struggle, if we're going to be 1,000% honest. But now he is slowly starting to figure it out. Right now, he is on fire, averaging like 30 in the last 10, 12 games. And this is around the same stretch period of time where, ever since James Harden has been moved to the official point guard, they've been able to win games. They're 11-4 right now ever since he's moved to the official point guard position and Russell Westbrook has went to the bench. But Kawhi Leonard heating up is exactly what the team needs. You can't have a team that has this much talent for their talent, the players that are supposed to be scoring, not to do their job. And as we see, Kawhi Leonard is going crazy in the post-up. He's doing what he's supposed to do. And so I don't want to understate that enough. And this is something that I've always kind of had critiques with, the Clippers team just in general, is not only just their health, right, in terms of just being on the court, but being consistent enough in doing what you're supposed to do. You can only give them so much props just for the fact that they're doing their jobs and hitting the shots that they want to hit. But also I will say that because James Harden is a new gigantic piece on their team, I understand the struggles that you have. But right now, Kawhi Leonard is doing the best job he possibly can while also still acknowledging that he has other teammates that needs the ball, and sometimes he won't even touch the ball in certain possessions. But at the end of the day, he's been on teams like the San Antonio Spurs or the Toronto Raptors where sometimes, he would allow teammates to be those players to, dominate the ball in a couple possessions, give him some time off, especially with the fact that he is a two-way player guarding some of their best players and playing, defense and being one of the anchors on the defensive team. And the Clippers is one of those teams where there's not necessarily one defensive anchor. There's not really just one player that is, dominating the defensive end like there is for, let's say, like the Minnesota Timberwolves with Rudy Gobert. In reality, the Clippers are a team full of defensive players. Outside of Norman Powell, you still have Russell Westbrook, who's a good on-ball defender, might not be a great off-ball. But then you also have the best swing defenders in Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. And then you also have Ivica Zubac to, pretty much lock down anything in the inside. And so they have the players to have a really good team. And that actually works well into Kawhi Leonard's favor because he doesn't have to work that hard. But it's not just on Kawhi, because the other player we have to talk about is Paul George and how Paul George, because as soon as James Harden got on the team, something similar happened to Paul George where, he didn't really know where he fit. He didn't really know what shots to take. And you could see it was a little bit off. It was a little bit stiff in terms of the offensive movement. And that's something that, Tyronn Lue has done a really good job in trying to fit and assimilate players to a certain play style that not only fits his system, but also fits the play styles of the players that he got on the team. The only player that doesn't really fit is PJ Tucker, but we all kind of knew that as soon as Terrence Mann still got minutes and, is getting valuable minutes. But Paul George has been back to what he once started this season, even though he's been, dealing with a groin injury recently. He's back to the type of player that he was before James Harden joined the team. And like I said before, you can't underestimate how important it is for the star talent, the star players of your team the people who are supposed to produce the most amount of points to be consistent. And like I said with Kawhi Leonard, this is the thing that they've had an issue with on their team. And with James Harden, there is no excuse for this Clippers team not to go to the championship or at least the Western Conference Finals. This is a championship or bust season. We don't know whether or not the Clippers are going to stay together, especially with a lot of them going into free agency next summer. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what their future is. But at the end of the day, right, we are only talking about this season. James Harden, who just joined the team, is finally starting to kind of catch his feet underneath him and averaging around 20 points and 10 assists, something very, very similar that he was doing with the Philadelphia 76ers. Not to toot my own horn, but something that I expected, where he was going to be the point guard that's getting everybody involved. Because I think a lot of people, when they look at James Harden, they kind of got the wrong idea, especially in the Houston days, where the system was just predicated around him scoring and then kicking out, or the pick and rolls. But James Harden has always shown that he's a great playmaker and a great facilitator. So a lot of people who look at James Harden's game think that he's a really selfish player on offense, because the fact that, Mike D'Antoni's offense was just purely dedicated on him having the ball and controlling the ball for 15 to 20 seconds. Now, he doesn't have to do that. He has help. And so that kind of alleviates a lot of the pressure from him. It's just the reason why it's kind of weird that the fit with Joel Embiid, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie Irving didn't work, because he's essentially been doing the same exact role for the last 4 or 5 years. But nevertheless, he is now hitting stride. And the only issue that I have with James Harden in his game, especially with the fact that he has kind of lost a step of quickness, is the fact that if his shot is not on, he is kind of relegated to just being a regular point guard. And there's nothing really of great value outside of the fact that he can manipulate the pick and roll to such a mastery and such a degree that, he at least still has some value. But the issue with James Harden is the fact that he lost a step, because when you have to rely on your shot being on every single night, there are times where your shots aren't hitting. And, sometimes you can get downhill if you're James Harden, but if it's just a one-on-one, unless he's going to bulldoze over you, he's having a really tough time to get to the basket. And this is something that we have seen even back in his Brooklyn Nets days. And this is also something that is going in line to, if you're just looking at the eye test, he has gained a little bit of weight. I wouldn't want to say that he's overweight or anything like that. But if you were to look at Houston days versus the days of today, you can see he's definitely not as slim as he once was. And that has definitely took a hit on his explosiveness, because he's not as fast as he once was either. But at the end of the day, they're all clicking together. And I'd be remiss to say that the primary reason why they're all clicking together, even with the fact that they're all now being consistent, they're all doing their jobs. Paul George is doing their job. Kawhi Leonard is doing his job. James Harden is now finding a foothold on the team. The only reason why they are successful is because of Russell Westbrook. I cannot understate that enough. So right now they're ranked 5th in the Western Conference and lost to the number 2 seed in the Oklahoma City Thunder, who is just playing lights out. And I'm going to have a video on them soon. But I could definitely see them snatching up that 4th seed, and if they are consistent enough that they can kind of stay right there and hover there until the playoff comes, because I really don't believe that the Sacramento Kings, unless they make moves to become a better team, is going to be the team that kind of stays around that 4th seed spot. The Dallas Mavericks are a little bit up and down with the health of Kyrie Irving. Might not be the team that you really want to depend on. So with that all to say, with the fragility that is the Western Conference right now, which has been the first time in a very, very long time, the Clippers are in prime position to snatch up that number 4 seed and possibly make a championship push because of the prowess of James Harden in the pick and roll and his shooting ability with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. Even with Norman Powell as well coming off the bench, they have shooters, they have buckets, they have go-getters, and there's no excuse for them not to go into the championship, especially with the talent that they have on this team. So we'll see how playoff time is going to fare for James Harden and Paul George, people who have been maligned for their inconsistencies within the playoffs, a little bit with Kawhi Leonard too, but with this team now, they have to make a stand. They have to make a stand not only for the season, but Paul George and James Harden has to make a stand for their career and their legacy on the line. They cannot, and I repeat, they cannot let this opportunity go and be named the chokers that they always have been characterized for. And this is the last thing that they need in their career, especially with how much success they've had already, but also dealing with the reality that they aren't playoff superstars that we all expect them to be. That yes, they do go down in the playoffs, especially when it comes to their efficiency, and they might be inconsistent. So if they want to stop this whole moniker that they are playoff chokers, then they need to show up this season.